Some disappearances defy time, logic, and even science, leaving behind nothing but silence, confusion, and the quiet ache of those still searching. "15. The Livingston vanishing. Alan Niven's mysterious death in Scotland, 2025. On the afternoon of July 12, 2025, 54-year-old Alan Niven was last seen walking along Tweed Drive in the Craigshill area of Livingston, West Lothian. Described by friends and family as kind, quiet, and familiar with the area, his sudden disappearance sparked immediate concern. As the hours turned into days, worry spread across the community. Posters went up, social media posts circulated, and local police launched a missing person investigation. By July 14th, Police Scotland publicly confirmed Niven had been reported missing. Appeals were shared through official police channels and online groups, urging anyone with information to come forward. Family members and community advocates joined the search, hoping for any sign of his whereabouts. Then, on Friday, July 18th, around 2:40 p.m, the search came to a grim end. Officers discovered the body of a man near Almond Valley Bridge, close to the very area where Alan had last been seen. Police Scotland quickly cordoned off the scene and notified Alan's family. While formal identification was pending at the time, authorities stated that his loved ones had been informed of the discovery. The case is currently being treated as an unexplained death. In a statement, Police Scotland confirmed that inquiries are ongoing and that a report would be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal, Scotland's legal authority that investigates sudden or suspicious deaths. No further details have been released publicly regarding possible injuries, cause of death, or signs of foul play. The location, Almond Valley Bridge, is a wooded and relatively quiet area near walking paths and residential homes. Some locals expressed shock that such a discovery could happen so close to where families and children walk daily. Others left tributes online, remembering Alan as a gentle presence in the neighbourhood. On Facebook, the Police Scotland West Lothian Division shared a post thanking the public for their assistance during the search and requesting privacy for the grieving family. Community members have since used the comments to express condolences and support, with many noting how deeply the case has affected the town. While speculation naturally follows any unexplained death, police have urged the public to avoid spreading misinformation and to await the official outcome of the investigation. Alan Niven's story didn't end with a dramatic twist, but with a silent disappearance and unanswered questions. A man walked out of his home one summer afternoon and never came back. As authorities await forensic results, a family grieves, and a quiet Scottish town is left wondering how something so tragic could happen so close to home. 14. A crime boss's revenge. The disappearance of Jonathan Fraser. On July 30th, 2016, at his Hawaii Kai apartment in Honolulu, 21-year-old Jonathan Fraser disappeared without a trace. Known for his friendly disposition and promising future, the tech-savvy college student was reported missing the next day. What followed would reveal a chilling tale of mistaken vengeance against a backdrop of grief and power. Surveillance cameras and witness accounts confirmed 3 armed intruders stormed Fraser's home around 3 a.m. on July 30th, though there were no signs of forced entry or ransacking. The chaos hinted at something far more targeted than a burglary. Days later, the FBI released startling details. Fraser's bound and beaten body was found on a trail in the Santa Cruz Mountains. He had been stabbed multiple times and, critically, shot execution style in the back of the head. Nearby was Rachel Emily's white BMW, stolen from the driveway and abandoned in a motel lot. Inside Fraser's house, A large sum of money remained untouched in a safe, suggesting theft was never the objective. So why target Fraser? Investigators soon uncovered a grisly motive. Jonathan was allegedly blamed for the death of Michael Caleb Misk Jr., son of powerful Hawaii crime boss Michael Misk Sr., in a 2015 car accident. Despite official reports showing Caleb was behind the wheel, rumors circulated that Jonathan had switched seats and driven, fueling a vengeful conspiracy. Unsealed court documents revealed that a kidnapping for hire plot was in motion. Miska Sr. allegedly paid hitmen to abduct Fraser, who was then tortured with chemicals, beaten severely, bound to a chair, and ultimately killed. The execution-style shooting indicated a plan to erase any narrative, leaving no witness or confession. The plot unraveled in early 2024. On December 1st, Michael Miske Sr. was found dead in his Honolulu federal prison cell, officially ruled a suicide just months before sentencing. Authorities believe he orchestrated a cover-up until the evidence, including emails, cell ping data, and witness accounts, became undeniable. Fraser's family has never had the chance for closure. His body remains in Santa Cruz, far from the Hawaiian community he called home. Though several men, including hired muscle and middlemen, have been charged and convicted, the alleged mastermind is gone. Prosecutors say the case exemplifies the most chilling form of vigilante justice, a wealthy patriarch exploiting his power to punish a young man for a lethal accident he himself caused. This story lays bare the deadly reach of private revenge when grief and influence collide with premeditated violence. Below the sunny paradise of Hawaii, a father's rage became a dark saga of contract killing, leaving families fractured, one taken, another destroyed. 13. Lost above the ledges, the final hike of Russell Jacobs. In mid-September 2022, outdoorsman Russell Jacobs, a 45-year-old insurance broker from Colorado Springs, set off to hike Longs Peak, one of Rocky Mountain National Park's most challenging 14ers. On September 16th, he called a friend, saying he'd lost the trail in early snow and chilling winds at over 13,000 feet. He mentions heading toward Agnes Viley Shelter, then abruptly cuts off. It would be his final known message. Park rangers sprang into action. By mid-afternoon, they pinpointed his cell signal near the ledges area, a narrow rock ledge with steep drop-offs just before Keyhole Notch. Darkness and a snowstorm made the terrain nearly impassable. Rescue teams established a base overnight, hoping Jacobs might seek shelter at Agnes Vale. The next morning, his body was discovered approximately 80 feet above the ledges, still wearing his snow gear, life jacket, and crampons, indicating he'd been prepared. There were no signs of foul play, no struggle, no extra clothing, no packs or water, not even his phone. He had simply gone out into the snow and never returned. Rocky Mountain rescuers described the Ledges Trail as historic and well marked by painted rock cairns, but treacherous in snow. One Denver Post report noted how snow could erase those visual cues, turning a familiar path into a maze. High winds and nightfall would have compounded the danger. Friends and family were stunned. Jacobs was an experienced outdoorsman, not a novice. He'd ascended Longs Peak dozens of times and was familiar with its challenges. His significant preparation, gear, training made the outcome even more perplexing. Many speculated that altitude disorientation, sudden weather shift, or a misstep on the slippery ledge was to blame. Locals say the Agnes Vile shelter, built decades prior after a fatal avalanche, provides refuge, but only when reached. That night, rangers warned of near whiteout conditions and temperatures dropping below freezing. Without shelter, even a brief exposure could prove fatal. Authorities closed the case as an accidental death, grounded in the natural hazards of high-altitude winter hiking. Still, the loss shook the Rocky Mountain community. Those who knew Jacobs emphasize his discipline and respect for the mountains, traits that usually save lives, but aren't enough against sudden weather and steep terrain. The tragedy of Russell Jacobs is a warning. Devotion, training, and care can't always conquer nature's unpredictability. In the Rockies, even the experience can vanish when snow obscures the path and the silence sets in above the ledges. 12th, vanished in the chaos, the enigmatic case of Dr. Sneha Ann Phillip. On the evening of September 10th, 2001, Dr. Sneha Ann Phillip, an accomplished Indian-American physician in her early 30s, was last seen at her Manhattan apartment near the World Trade Center. Security footage that day shows her making a large purchase, about $550 worth of clothes, from a department store in Brooklyn. The bags never surfaced, and neither did she. That night she didn't return home. Her husband assumed she'd stayed with relatives. The next morning, September 11th, all contact ceased. Given that she lived just minutes from the Twin Towers, speculation quickly arose. Was Sneha a tragic victim of the attacks, possibly on her way to help in nearby hospitals? There was no record of her trying to evacuate, no body recovered, and her name didn't appear on any 9/11 victim list. A deeper trouble cloud loomed. In the months before her disappearance, media reports surfaced suggesting Sneha faced personal issues, alleged substance struggles, an affair, and a pending legal complaint against a co-worker. Some officials and skeptics began theorizing she might have used the September 11th chaos as cover to vanish intentionally. Friends and family were divided. Her husband and colleagues painted her as driven and compassionate, a doctor committed to public health, specifically working for New York City's Department of Health at Bellevue Hospital. She was well-liked, respected, and seemingly stable in all areas of life. The narrative of a deliberate disappearance struck them as unimaginable. In 2001 and 2002, NYPD and DOJ investigations found no evidence of her presence at the World Trade Center on 9/11. No DNA, no witness sightings. Yet in 2008, her family petitioned successfully, and a federal judge ruled that Sneha should be legally presumed a 9/11 victim, making her the only missing person officially recognized as such. This designation brought public attention and respect, but it didn't end the mystery. Was Sneha at Bellevue, tending wounded survivors in the horror of the collapsing towers? Or did she escape amid the chaos, choosing privacy over publicity? No trace of her suitcase, no record of travel, and no confirmed communication after the initial purchase shrouded the case in questions. Today, the case of Dr. Sneha Ann Phillip remains a haunting intersection of tragedy, speculation, and unresolved identity. She's legally a 9/11 casualty, but unlike others, she left no body, no farewell, just echoes of a life interrupted in a moment of national catastrophe. Her story continues to prompt the same question: did she perish in the towers or walk away from them? 11. Gone without a sound. The vanishing of Trenny Gibson in the Smoky Mountains. On October 8, 1976, 16-year-old Teresa Trenny Gibson, a high school student from Knoxville, Tennessee, joined her classmates and teachers on a school field trip to visit Clingman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains. The day was clear, lively, and filled with laughter as the group climbed the trail toward the 45-foot-high observation tower that offers sweeping views of the mountains. Along the way, Trenny and two friends paused to rest, while others continued ahead. Minutes later, as the larger group pressed forward, the same refrain echoed. Someone had been there, and then she vanished. Hikers reported seeing dozens of people on the trails before and after her disappearance. making the vanishing even more mystifying. The trail near Clingman's Dome is steep, with sheer drop-offs along one side, but no signs of a fall, no clothing, no sounds of a possible accident were ever reported. Within hours, school officials panicked and alerted the park. Rangers and volunteers, aided by canine units, combed the area in thick fog and rain that night. One search dog even tracked a scent approximately 1.5 miles past the dome near Newfound Gap, but the trail went cold there. In the following days, the search intensified. Rangers, police, students, teachers, parents, and volunteers scoured trails, creeks, and cliffs. Authorities considered all possibilities: accident, misadventure, or abduction. Yet no trace was ever found, no footprints, no belongings, no sign indicating what had happened to Trenny. Over nearly 5 decades, the case has grown into one of the oldest cold cases in the Smokies. Friends and relatives describe Trenny as bright, sociable, and well-liked, the sort of teenager who would never wander off without warning. Years of renewed searches, media appeals, and hiker-submitted tips have produced nothing more than hopes and theories. Some believe she may have slipped off the trail, while others cling to the possibility of an unnoticed abduction, especially since no reason for voluntary disappearance has ever emerged. In 2024, WBIR-TV featured her case in an Appalachian Lonely Bones series, marking nearly 48 years without answers. Locals still leave flowers and notes at trailheads, not just remembering Trenny, but demanding any clue that could bring closure. More than just a disappearance, Trenny's case is a lesson in uncertainty. A group of teenagers, on a field trip to the heart of national beauty, met with a sudden, inexplicable break in time. 1 minute, she was among them. The next, she simply wasn't. To this day, the Smokies keep her secret, silent, enduring, and haunting. 10. Vanished in the canyon. The strange disappearance of Morgan Heimer. On June 2, 2015, 22-year-old Morgan Heimer, an experienced rafting guide from Cody, Wyoming, was 6 days into an 8-day Tour West expedition along the Colorado River. As the group stopped near Pumpkin Springs, known for its iconic orange cliffs and popular swimming spot, Heimer told a colleague he needed to take a break. When the lead guide turned away momentarily, at around 4 p.m., Morgan vanished without a trace. Morgan was never a typical camper. He was a skilled swimmer, a practiced trekker, and a reliable guide. Decked out in a personal flotation device, sandals, plaid shirt, and carrying a water bottle, no signs of distress or intent to wander were found. His last known location was near cliffs overlooking the river. Terrain familiar to him, not dangerous. What followed was a dramatic 6-day search. Park rangers deployed helicopters, boats, and ground teams covering the riverbanks between river miles 211 and 225. They scanned steep canyon walls, sandy shores, and hidden eddies, interviewing tour members, separate rafting companies, and even coordinating with Arizona search and rescue units. Still, they found nothing. No footprints, no gear, no personal items, just silence. Official National Park Service records show the search transitioned to a continuous but limited effort, relying on rangers and pilots on the water until summer's end. Missing person posters remained along trails, and new rafting crews were briefed to remain alert. But as summer turned to autumn, and then years passed, no new information surfaced. Speculation grew. Did Morgan slip and drown? Some argue so, citing fast currents and hidden river pathways, but others highlight inconsistencies: the flotation device, known swimming ability, and lack of recovered remains make accidental drowning unlikely to explain his complete disappearance. Another theory: did he intentionally vanish? He was young, in love with the wilderness, and free spirits sometimes seek quiet escapes. Still, the abrupt nature of his disappearance, leaving behind water, shoes, belongings, runs counter to such a plan. Investigators and family lean against this idea. Reddit threads reflect enduring intrigue and compassion. One comment reads, "He definitely has the skills, a person we have a high likelihood to find," echoing what searchers believed at the time. Yet a month later, even seasoned river guides and wildlife experts offered no leads, suggesting something far more mysterious had taken place. To this day, Morgan's body has never been found. There's been no recovered personal items, only unanswered questions. Did he fall into a hidden cavern? Did predators in the ecosystem play a role? Was human foul play involved, or an unfortunate misstep? Theories swirl, but no evidence follows. What remains clear is that Morgan Heimer vanished in broad daylight in a community filled with people. A 22-year-old guide known for strength, safety, and skill, gone without a trace. The Grand Canyon continues to hold its secrets, prompting us to pause at its beauty and remember that even the most prepared can disappear into its depths, silently, forever. 9. The last hostel exit. The disappearance of Jean Tige in Portugal. On July 13th, 2020, 38-year-old Irish traveller Jean Tige checked into the Help Yourself hostel in Parede, Portugal, excited for a summer trip she planned alone. She spent the evening chatting with fellow guests before heading to bed. What she didn't realize was how her final morning would come to define a nearly unsolvable mystery. Jean was last seen leaving the hostel on foot at around 10 a.m., heading toward the nearby beach cliffs. She strolled alongside the rugged coastline with a Brazilian man, one of the other guests, before he circled back to the hostel. That was the last confirmed sighting. Her passport and backpack were found behind, in a room she shared with a friend. When she didn't return for dinner, alarm bells sounded. Family and friends attempted to reach her. Text messages and calls went unanswered. With no ID and no word, her loved ones alerted local authorities. But initial responses from Portuguese police were slow, and search efforts were limited. One chilling twist: Jean's social media accounts showed activity for months after her disappearance. Some messages looked like them from her, but family members fiercely suspect they were handled by someone else. Desperate for truth, they questioned if this was a case of imposed identity, keeping hope alive while shadows deepened. It wasn't until mid-2023 that Jean's case picked up momentum. Portugal finally listed her as missing, and Irish media began consistently reporting on her case. Appeals by Irish government officials, including the Taoiseach and a sitting TD, demanded more transparency from Portuguese authorities. The public push sparked renewed attention, but no breakthroughs. Jean's disappearance exposed deeper fault lines: the vulnerability of solo travelers, mismatches in international search protocols, and delays in diplomatic cooperation. Her family criticized Portuguese police for treating her as a likely runaway instead of a missing adult in potential danger. The location, Paredes Cliff Trails, is rugged but seldom deadly. There were no eyewitnesses to a fall, no abandoned belongings along the path, and no signs of violence. Leading theories include a voluntary departure, foul play, or unintended accident. Yet each feels incomplete, and nothing fits perfectly. Today, Jean's family operates with a haunting ambiguity. They are torn between hope that she might still be found, and the cruel reality that her trail has gone cold. They continue to appeal for leads, offering closure over uncertainty. Jean Tigue's case remains a chilling reminder of how someone can vanish into plain sight. With no body, no final message, and no definitive evidence, it defies closure in a way that haunts more than tragedy alone. Her story lingers as a cautionary tale, even in calm coastal towns. Beneath a surface of routine lies the possibility of a silence that never ends. 8. Vanished in the outback. The strange disappearances in regional Queensland. Queensland's outback stretches for thousands of rugged, untamed kilometres, a landscape known for its beauty, isolation, and danger. But beneath its iconic red dirt lies a quieter legacy. Disappearances that remain unsolved, unexplained, and painfully haunting. Here are 4 such cases that have left families grasping for answers in some of the most remote corners of Australia. In October 2021, 27-year-old Jeremiah J.O. Rivers vanished during a pig hunting trip with friends in a remote area near Whippo Creek, outside Nokundra in southwest Queensland. The young Indigenous man was last seen walking away from camp early in the morning. His group claimed he was looking for phone reception, but he never returned. A large-scale search involving SES, helicopters, trackers, and cadaver dogs spanned over 8 days, yet no trace of J.O. was ever found. In 2024, a coronial inquest concluded that foul play was likely. It noted inconsistent accounts among the group and a suspicious delay in reporting him missing. Despite the findings, no one has been charged, and his family continues to call for justice. In January 1989, 21-year-old Michelle Lewis left a friend's home in North Rockhampton and began her usual bicycle ride back to her residence. She never arrived. No clothing, bike parts, or personal effects were ever recovered. More than 3 decades later, police have officially ruled Michelle's case a suspected homicide. In 2020, the Queensland government offered a $500,000 reward for information. Her loved ones have waited years, clinging to the hope that someone, somewhere, knows what happened that night. In November 2024, an elderly couple set out fossicking for gold in the harsh bushlands near Croydon, far north Queensland. Days passed with no word. Police found their car abandoned along with their phones and supplies. A search and rescue helicopter located both bodies days later. Authorities ruled the deaths accidental, likely caused by dehydration and exposure in the unforgiving heat. Still, questions linger about how experienced bush travellers could perish so quickly and why they appeared to have left safety behind. What ties these cases together is not just mystery, but silence. The outback does not always give back what it takes. In a place where tracks disappear with the wind and the heat can turn deadly in hours, finding someone, even a trace, is a race against time. Whether it's foul play, misadventure, or something more elusive, these stories remain unresolved. And for each, a family waits, not for closure, but for truth. 7. The Colorado vanishing. What really happened to Santino Cardella? On a spring night in April 2022, 22-year-old Santino Tino Cardella vanished from Colorado Springs. Friends last saw him leaving a nightclub near downtown, his morning plans and destination unknown. By daybreak, when he didn't show up at work, concern turned to alarm. The Colorado Springs police quickly launched a missing person investigation, describing his absence as suspicious. Months passed with no trace, until late 2024, when detectives received a tip hinting at possible burial sites in Pueblo West. In October, law enforcement executed search warrants in 6 adjacent properties. During the excavation, they uncovered human remains. The El Paso County coroner confirmed they belonged to Santino, ending an agonizing mystery but beginning a homicide investigation. Authorities disclosed few details on how he died. The Colorado Springs Police Department labeled the case a homicide and appealed to the public for information, but gave no indication of suspects. the case took a darker turn as it emerged Santino may be connected to other violent crimes. In 2022, Becca Simmons was arrested and later convicted for the murder of Daximo Sehia, whose body was found in a suitcase in a culvert near Colorado Springs. Detectives believe this suspect may also be linked to Santino's killing, although no charges have yet followed. In early 2025, court records revealed that Santino had past legal issues, including a guilty plea for felony menacing. While not definitive, these details painted a broader picture, a man with a troubled past, now darkened by a violent end. Today, the investigation continues. Detectives urge anyone with knowledge, even those who may be hesitant, to come forward. Santino's family describes him as kind, artistic, and full of promise, qualities that now feel hauntingly frozen in time. Santino Cardella's death is a collision of mystery and violence, a young life erased without a public trace until police uncovered a buried secret. It raises unsettling questions. Was his disappearance tied to underworld activity? Did he know his killer? Or did his past simply make him a target? As Pueblo West residents absorb the news and Colorado Springs welcomes tips, one thing remains clear. Santino's story is more than a murder case. It's a reminder that people can vanish from familiar streets and end up buried in silence. 6. Kidnapped at sea, the mysterious case of Elliot Eastman. In late October 2024, 59-year-old Elliot O'Neill Eastman, a US citizen from Vermont, disappeared without a trace off the coast of the southern Philippines. What followed would spiral into a transnational mystery involving a shadowy boat ride, international manhunts, and ultimately, tragedy. Elliot had reportedly traveled to the Philippines for a vacation and a business opportunity. On October 14th, he was last seen boarding a small boat near Zamboanga, a port city known for both its bustling commerce and its proximity to areas long troubled by piracy and rebel activity. Shortly after, Eastman stopped responding to messages. His family in Vermont received no word, only growing silence. Back home, his loved ones raised the alarm. Within days, the US Embassy in Manila and the Philippine National Police (PNP) launched a joint investigation. A preliminary report suggested Eastman may have been abducted at sea. Authorities quietly suspected he was kidnapped for ransom, either by organized crime networks or local extremist groups. The situation bore eerie resemblance to other foreigner abductions in the region, including cases linked to Abu Sayyaf, though no group initially claimed responsibility. By November, satellite data and intercepted messages narrowed the search to waters around Basilan Island. But just as hope was dwindling, authorities received a tip. Human remains had been discovered in a mangrove-lined coastal area. After weeks of forensic testing, on December 4th, the remains were confirmed to be Elliot's. The New York Times reported that US and Filipino authorities classified his death as homicide, though the exact cause has not been disclosed. No arrests have been made. Officials remain tight-lipped, but investigators suspect Eastman may have been targeted for financial reasons, possibly lured under false pretenses. The lack of a ransom demand or public claims has only deepened the mystery. Some theorize the case involved criminal smuggling syndicates posing as tour operators, a tactic reportedly used to lure foreigners into remote regions. For his family in Vermont, the news was devastating. They described Elliot as adventurous but cautious and insist he would never have knowingly taken unnecessary risks. His sister called his death senseless and cruel, and has urged the US government to push for justice and accountability. Elliot Eastman's story is a chilling reminder that even well-traveled individuals can fall victim to invisible dangers, especially in remote parts of the world where law enforcement is sparse and loyalties are blurred. The waters he vanished into remain unguarded, his killers unnamed, and the circumstances around his death largely unanswered. The sea keeps many secrets, but this one may still rise with the tide. 5. Vanished at check-in, the cartel-linked hotel abduction in Mexico. In the early hours of September 14, 2021, armed gunmen stormed Hotel Solway Luna in Matehuala, a city in the Mexican state of San Luis Potosí. Their target, not drugs or cash, but people. At least 20 guests and staff members, primarily foreign nationals from Haiti and Venezuela, were taken in what authorities suspect was a coordinated abduction linked to organized crime. According to local police, the assailants arrived swiftly and with a plan. Surveillance footage later released shows masked men entering the hotel lobby, checking guest logs, and moving from room to room. Without firing a single shot, they rounded up more than a dozen migrants, some asylum seekers, and disappeared into the dark. When hotel staff contacted authorities, a full-scale search began. Security checkpoints were established, and drones scanned the surrounding desert. Within 24 hours, the kidnapped individuals were found alive, abandoned near a remote road. Some showed signs of dehydration but were otherwise unharmed. Authorities say the victims were likely targeted by human traffickers or cartel affiliates operating along Mexico's migration corridors. The region has become a hotspot for organized crime groups that exploit vulnerable migrants for extortion, forced labor, or smuggling. Matehuala lies along a well-worn route used by migrants traveling north from Central America and the Caribbean. Many arrive with dreams of reaching the US, only to fall prey to opportunistic gangs who offer safe passage, and then vanish them. Despite the victims' safe recovery, officials have not arrested any suspects, and the motive remains officially unconfirmed. The speed and coordination of the operation, however, suggest deeper connections. This wasn't the first time a hotel had been used as a staging ground for abductions. In a separate 2018 incident, also in San Luis Potosí, dozens were kidnapped in a similar style raid. These patterns point to an emerging tactic by cartels: strike quickly, identify targets through front desk records, and flee before local law enforcement can react. For many, the Solway Luna case symbolizes a disturbing evolution in organized crime in Mexico, where hotels, meant to be sanctuaries for rest, have become hunting grounds. Though the victims survived, the trauma lingers, and the silence from those responsible grows louder with every unanswered question. 4th, bones in the depths, the Taal Lake disappearances of 2021 to 2022. Between April 2021 and January 2022, at least 34 sabungueros, cockfighters in Tagalog, vanished across various provinces in Luzon, including Laguna, Bulacan, Manila, Rizal, and Batangas. These men were all connected to Isabong, or online cockfighting, which had boomed during the pandemic. Most were last seen around cockfighting arenas, while others were reportedly taken from their homes. For years, their disappearances remained unresolved, until a shocking confession in 2025 changed everything. A suspect known only as Totoy came forward in June 2025 and revealed a grisly claim. The missing sabungueros were strangled using tie wires, placed inside sacks, and dumped into the depths of Taal Lake. According to Totoy, the true number of victims may exceed 100, far more than initially reported. That confession triggered a high-stakes underwater search. On July 10th, the Philippine Coast Guard began combing through the lake's volcanic waters. Divers recovered multiple sacks, some filled with sand as weights, others containing suspected human bones. The Department of Justice, led by Secretary Crispin Ramolla, confirmed that among the recovered materials were human ribs, bones, and additional sacks filled with heavy debris. Of 91 fragments retrieved, 6 were identified as likely human remains. However, search operations were soon paused due to safety concerns. Officials from Five Oaks warned of potential volcanic activity and unstable underwater conditions, factors that could endanger divers. DNA testing is now underway to determine if the bones match any of the missing sabongeros. Totoy's testimony has cast a harsh spotlight on the dark side of the cockfighting industry. Beyond casual betting, Sabong had grown into a massive multi-billion peso enterprise, one now allegedly entangled with organized crime, corruption, and even celebrities. While no high-profile suspects have been charged yet, authorities hint that more names may surface as investigations continue. Taal Lake, long regarded as one of the Philippines' most scenic destinations, is now viewed by many with dread. Its waters, plunging over 500 feet deep in places, are feared to have hidden an orchestrated crime for years. For the families of the missing, hope and dread now walk hand in hand. As each sack is pulled from the lake, it brings them closer to painful answers, but also to long-awaited justice. The beauty of Taal Lake may endure, but beneath the surface, it holds stories of betrayal, silence, and a mass disappearance that shook the nation. 3. The vanishing of Iwona Vurk, Poland's most puzzling missing person case. In the early hours of July 17, 2010, 19-year-old Iwona Vurk vanished while walking home from a club in Sopot, just minutes from her Gdansk apartment. She had left Dream Club alone after an argument and decided to walk the approximately 5-kilometer route home. Around 4:12 a.m., a surveillance camera captured her near beach entrance number 63 before her trail abruptly ended. Investigators obtained CCTV showing a man, dubbed the Man with a Towel, walking behind Iwona shortly before she disappeared. For years he remained unidentified, leading to widespread public speculation. In 2022, that man came forward and was cleared as a suspect. Police consider him a witness, not a perpetrator. Initially, authorities downplayed the disappearance, attributing it to a young woman out partying. Formal searches began only 2 weeks later. Despite combing local parks, beaches, and allotments, no trace of Iwona, her belongings, or her phone was ever found. In 2012, the investigation was officially closed, though authorities promised to revisit if new leads emerged. That promise came true in 2019, when the case was transferred to RQMX, Poland's elite cold case unit based in Krakow, dedicated to unsolved crimes. Since then, RQMX has applied new technologies and unconventional investigative methods to review the case. A major breakthrough arrived in June 2024. Police announced a new tip involving a white Fiat Cinquecento spotted on July 17, 2010 at 5:07 a.m. near Pomorska Street in Gdansk. Investigators believe the driver may be linked to local criminal networks operating near the Dream Club. Meanwhile, media coverage, including the 2023 true crime docuseries The Case of Iwona Vurk, streaming on Viaplay and Netflix Poland, has revived public attention and pressure for answers. This series features interviews with investigators, Iwona's mother, private detectives, and online sleuths who argue the perpetrator can be identified. Despite an immense volume of CCTV, witness interviews, private investigations, and high-profile speculation, including psychic claims and conspiracy theories, no definitive conclusion has been reached. Iwona's disappearance continues to haunt Poland. A young woman walked home on a summer night and just vanished. Her steps stopped in the frame of a security camera, and they've echoed unanswered for more than a decade. With new leads, evolving technology, and relentless public scrutiny, her case may yet yield justice. Until then, Iwona's story remains one of modern Europe's most enduring mysteries. 2. The airport escape, the baffling disappearance of Lars Mittank. In the summer of 2014, 28-year-old Lars Mittank, a German tourist, embarked on what should have been a carefree vacation at the Golden Sands Resort near Varna, Bulgaria. Initially, everything was typical: beach days, nights out, and camaraderie with his group of friends. But the atmosphere shifted on July 5th to 6th, when a verbal spat over football escalated into a physical altercation. Lars returned with a ruptured eardrum and jaw injuries brought from that fight. A doctor diagnosed a ruptured eardrum, prescribed Cefprozil, and advised against flying. Concerned but trusting, his friends returned to Germany on July 7th, while Lars stayed behind in Varna, checking into a budget hotel by the airport. That night, a frightening paranoia took hold. He phoned his mother, whispering that he felt followed and urging her to block his cards. Hotel surveillance filmed him pacing corridors, hiding in elevators, and peering out of windows in a state of distress by early July 8th. He disappeared for an hour without explanation. On July 8th, Lars, still unclothed for travel without luggage, arrived at Varna Airport. He entered the airport doctor's office seeking reapproval to fly. The doctor later described him as nervous and erratic. Anxiety peaked when a maintenance worker entered the room. Lars panicked, shouting, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." Then he fled, leaving behind passport, phone, and suitcase. Airport CCTV documented Lars sprinting across the terminal, exiting the building, scaling a metal fence, and vanishing into a dense wood and sunflower field beyond. That remains the last confirmed sighting. Search efforts began immediately. Bulgarian police combed nearby forests, fields, and roadsides. A 2015 German TV special reignited attention, and online sleuths scoured every detail. Reports, some from truckers in places like Germany, surfaced claiming sightings of a disoriented Lars years later, but none were verified. Multiple theories tried to explain his disappearance. Some suggest a psychotic or panic episode induced by a combination of head trauma, ear infection, and antibiotic side effects. Others speculate he witnessed criminal activity in Varna, prompting violent surveillance. Some believe he willingly disappeared to disappear, though that contradicts his bond with his mother and his panicked calls. Lars became known as the most famous missing person on YouTube, his panicked sprinting video watched by millions. Still today, his mother continues a tireless campaign. Social media groups, missing person posters, and appeals for any credible lead. This enduring mystery offers no simple answers. Was it a medical crisis, a crime, or something else entirely? With no trace of Lars, no definitive evidence, and fading hope calling again at each fold of forest, the Varna disappearance remains one of Europe's most haunting modern enigmas. 1. The mystery of the 1945 Porter County Jane Doe, a grave with two unknowns. In September 2021, a disturbing discovery was made in Carter Cemetery, Jackson Township, Porter County, Indiana. Workers exhumed what was believed to be the remains of a woman buried in 1945, known as Porter County Jane Doe 1945. But instead, they found the skeleton of someone entirely different, a woman still unidentified, long buried and largely erased by time. The remains were skeletal, small in stature, and discovered with a distinctive pink plastic buckle, one of the few items not entirely decomposed. No teeth remained, only dentures. Traditional methods like visual identification or isotope analysis were impossible. Investigators knew little more than that she was an adult female with dentures and had been deceased for years. Recognizing the challenge, the Porter County Coroner's Office partnered with the DNA Doe Project, an organization pushing the boundaries of forensic genealogy. In this pending case, volunteers and lab experts aim to extract DNA from the fragile bones, upload the results to public databases, and begin building family trees. But this research depends on donor support for lab costs, hence the community-funded Donate campaign. This is not the first unidentified woman linked to Porter County. In 1945, a Jane Doe's body was discovered in a wooded area near Highway 6. Found wearing a bluish-grey coat, nylons, and with gold dental fillings, the body showed no clear cause of death. The Jane Doe, the one originally buried, stands now as a distinct case, still waiting for identification. Attempts to disinter and identify the 1945 remains after nearly 8 decades led instead to a second mystery, a stranger lost to history and never registered in any missing person database. The contrast is haunting. One burial meant for closure now triggers another question mark. For those following the case, the hope lies in genetic genealogy. The DNA Doe Project has previously helped solve dozens of cold cases using just a root from the past. Their goal is to restore a name and a story to the bones, and perhaps uncover how she came to be buried anonymously. As the investigation continues, funding remains vital. The DNA Doe Project's Donate Fund seeks to cover lab expenses. Every donation brings the case closer to resolution. In homes and hearts across Porter County, locals wonder, who was she? Where did she come from? And can her family, if still living, find peace at last? This silent grave speaks volumes about identity, mortality, and the power of DNA to reach across decades. Hidden in a quiet cemetery, Porter County's unnamed woman reminds us that every life matters, and every story deserves to be told.